I'm an orthotist. Does anyone know what an orthotist is? All right, I was hoping for maybe one or two, but all right, cool, that'll do. All right, so look, anyone know what a podiatrist is? All right, just a little show of hands there, just so we can see a ratio. Cool, okay, so most of you know what a podiatrist is. Okay, so basically an orthotist is a little bit similar to a podiatrist in that we both do orthotics. So if you take a podiatrist, you minus all the fungal stuff, the corns, the calluses, the toenails, all the shit that basically you don't really want to touch. That's what I do. So my specialty is, yeah, less the manky stuff. So my specialty is making orthotics. If you don't know what orthotics are, they're custom-made art supports for feet. So basically, I love my job. I know you're probably all looking at me pretty funny when I say that. I've got a bit of a foot fetish, all right? You kind of have to succeed in this kind of line of work. So I like feet. It helps get through the day. The reason why I like feet is because I probably look at them a little bit differently to the way that you guys do. So when you guys look at a foot, you probably look at something that, how come we're not moving here? All right. When you guys look at a foot, you probably look at something that looks a bit like this. I look at it very differently. That skin is transparent to me. When I look at a foot, I look at something that looks a bit more like this. So I see 26 bones, I see 33 joints, 107 ligaments, 19 muscles, all put together so amazingly that somehow the average person can do 185,000 Ks walking in their lifetime without too many issues with it. Ultra marathon runners can do 100 miles in under 12 hours on a pair of these. Honestly, the foot, you guys don't see it this way, I do. It's an engineering miracle. That's what makes it so cool to work with day in, day out. So to sort of glorify what I do a bit, I look at myself as a mechanic that gets that opportunity to work on Ferraris all day, every day. So with so many moving parts in the foot though, a lot can go wrong. So it's important to really have your feet well tuned so you can get the best mileage out of them, and that's what I see my job as being. This is my practice. I love doing what I'm doing. It gives me that sense of achievement and purpose in life. I get to be involved every day in improving the quality of life of people. And you know, what really does it for me is when I have a 75-year-old patient that comes in to see me and they tell me that since getting their orthotics 2 weeks earlier, they're actually able to walk all the way down to the milk bar now, when previously they could really only walk as far as their mailbox. So that really is what makes my day when I get stories like that from patients. So my practice, I've been doing orthotics for 10 years now. Been running my own practice for the last 7. I'm a sole trader, which means I'm a bit of a loner. I don't have anyone that works with me. Some people look at that as a bit of a liability because you can't grow. To me, that's an asset because it means that I can provide my patients with that end-to-end care. So the ability to tell them that I am responsible for everything involved in their treatment every step of the way from start to finish. So for me, that's actually my point of difference, the fact that I do everything myself. So I think I've done a pretty good job in selling my career to you. Maybe some of you might go out and study this now. I don't know if you like feet like me. But basically, right now, this is probably what you all think about what I do, hopefully. That you think it's 100% awesome. It's all smiles. Life is great for me. It is good. But the reality is that this is more the breakdown of it. So I'd say it's more something like 40% awesome, 60% shithouse. Which, it's a fair bit of shithouse that you have to deal with if you have to, you know, deal with this sort of stuff every day. So there's a lot of a dark side that's involved in making orthotics. Like I said, I do this all myself, which means that I make them myself. So that's the biggest dark side of it all. Making orthotics is a very, very manual, labour-intensive process. It hasn't changed since the 60s. So if Jimi Hendrix wore orthotics, and let's just say that he did wear orthotics, he would have had them made exactly the same way as the way that we make them today, which is, it's pretty ridiculous when you think about it. This was 50 years ago, so it's crazy. I hate it more and more every day. It's time consuming, it's lonely, it's boring, it's repetitive, it's dangerous even, and quite honestly, it really just sucks. So this is where the magic happens, so to speak. Yeah, pretty amazing surroundings. This is my garage, aka the workshop. It's an ice box in winter. It's boiling in summer. It's full of dust and chemical fumes all over the place. It really is the kind of job that most people do prefer to outsource. And after I show you what I've got to do 3 out of 5 of my days of my working week, you're probably going to understand why. Outsourcing, though, is something that I flat out refuse to do. It really is, to me, about end-to-end service, so I'm not going to compromise on that. So that means that I do have to make them. I don't have a choice in the matter. So in making a pair of orthotics, I'm going to walk you through the process a little bit now, just quickly. There are 3 stages. First stage is actually taking an impression of the foot. So we actually wrap like a plaster bandage around the foot to get that impression. It takes about 45 minutes, pretty time consuming. It's messy. I get plaster all over my hands. My hands dry up in winter and they crack. It's pretty yuck. Sometimes they bleed. It's easy to stuff up, all right? If you stuff it up, you're spending even more time doing it. Once you've got that cast, you then fill it with a liquid plaster. So you've got to make something called a positive model. And that takes 10 minutes to fill. Probably takes another 2 hours for this stuff to actually dry before you can even work on it. Once it's dried, you've got something that looks a bit like that there. So this is what we call our positive model, and this is what I'm actually going to work off to design my orthotic. So this is how I design it. It's quite primitive. We basically just use some caveman tools. We carve a few bits and pieces out here, might change the angles. That's going to take a whole nother hour to do. So once I've actually got that design finalized, I'm going to put them into this machine here. It's called a vacuum former. And basically we heat up a piece of rubber, put it over the top of the orthotic, close the lid, push a button and suck it down, and it actually molds it to the shape of the orthotic. This, unfortunately, is the most technologically advanced piece of equipment that we have available to us. Again, like everything I do, it's 50 years old. It's basically a vacuum cleaner stuck to a box with a little button on the side. So once we've got that, this is what we have. So take the cast off. You've got your raw orthotic there. You put your trim lines on it, so you put that out in pen, and then you'll actually cut them out with this next technologically advanced piece of machinery that we have, which is just a blade. Once we've cut it out, then we go on to the grinding stage. So we've got to flatten the orthotic, grind all the trim lines up, make it nice and smooth, give it a bit of a buff, make it look clean so the patient can wear it. That takes 45 minutes to do. This is the bane of my existence, the grinding part. That's really what it's like. So it really is the worst part of my job, mainly because I've got to wear this bloody respirator, okay, and the goggles. I don't know if any of you guys have had to wear one of these before, and I really hope that you haven't. But it's very claustrophobic, it's uncomfortable, it's hard to wear, it's hard to move your neck in. My all-time favourite, after about 2 hours of breathing into this thing, you get this nice little pool of saliva that sort of just sort of accumulates just around the chin here. Which, so, you know, when you feel that building up, you sort of empty it out and just tip it into the bin next to you. So yeah, it's pretty disgusting. Also, the fact that I'm standing at my grinder for 8 or 9 hours a day, hunched over, it's definitely not good for any part of my body. My back and shoulders are screaming at me at that point. So, you know, it's nice to have a massage at the end of every week, basically. So once we've done that, we spend another 20 minutes doing all the finishing touches, just buffing it all up, and we bring it basically to a grand total of about 3 hours. At the end, you've got something that looks like that. Pretty unimpressive. 3 hours of blood, sweat and tears goes into making something that probably looks like you can pick them up for $10 from Chemist Warehouse. And you can buy off-the-shelf ones for about that cost. But these are obviously custom made. I'm just trying to justify my expenses a little bit to people. So I don't know if any of you guys wear orthotics. Now you know what's involved. Please treat them with a little bit of respect. Wash them regularly. Move them between your shoes. Don't tear them up, anything. Don't let your dogs attack them, because we do, every day, we put our lives on the line just so you guys can be comfortable, all right? So you can probably imagine this really, when I went and studied for 4 years at uni, I did a course called Prosthetics and Orthotics. This really isn't what I thought I signed up for. All right, so this wasn't what I signed up for. Basically, I did anatomy, biomechanics, all that sort of stuff. So I started looking into a better way of doing what I do, because quite honestly, it does suck. There's a lot of OH&S issues involved, and I did some research, and this is pretty much what I've come up with. 3D printing. This is the future of what I do. I reckon this is actually going to be the future of what probably all of you are going to be involved in at some point. And looking into how this works for orthotics, did a little bit of research, bit of Googling, and I found out that right at this very moment, there are a lot of smart people out there that are actually using this technology to try and find a better way to manufacture orthotics. The best part about all of it as well is that it is just around the corner. This is really not something that's going to be happening in 30 or 40 years' time. The best part is, at the very latest, it's going to be around in 10 years' time. More likely, it's probably going to be about 5 years. And if we're really lucky, in about 2 years, I could have actually one of these machines in my garage. So a lot of you have probably heard of what 3D printing is, but I'm not sure how many of you actually know what it is. Okay, there's supposed to be a video there. Yeah? Okay. So, so basically the concept of 3D printing, imagine you've got your desktop printer at home. Instead of it printing in regular ink, it's actually printing in like a liquefied plastic. So it lays down a layer of this plastic. That layer will then dry, and then it moves up, prints another layer, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, you've got a 3D object, okay? Yoda here was printed in plastic, but you can print a whole bunch of different materials out of 3D printers. You can do glass, you can do different types of metals. Basically anything that can be melted is something that you could feed through a 3D printer and make something out of. So this technology where you're adding layers is called additive manufacturing, as opposed to more traditionally when we do something called subtractive manufacturing. Now, 3D printing, there's some pretty awesome stuff. It's not just plastic Yodas that we're using to make things. This is an aircraft engine that Boeing have actually already made. This is going into the new 737 airliner. It's got about 30 or 40 3D printed parts in it. They've also got a contract to produce a minimum of 900 3D printed parts for the next generation fighter jet. This is an architect model, all printed in one piece on a 3D printer. This is my favourite one. This is actually a 3D printer that will print parts so you can make another 3D printer like that now. So it's capable, it's got reproductive capabilities basically. So you can see here, 3D printing, it's not science fiction anymore. It's happening now, and it's so reliable that companies like Boeing are actually using it without fear of their planes dropping out of the sky. So this has got me thinking a little bit. If it can keep planes in the air, surely it's got to be able to keep people on their feet, maybe by making orthotics. So looking into all this a bit more, it turns out that yes, that it can, and it will be able to do that. And here's how it's going to work. So remember before how I used to take an impression of the foot? What I would do, well, instead of taking a plaster cast, what I do now is I have one of these things. This is a 3D scanner. Put the foot in the right position, push a button, 10 seconds later, I've got an impression of the foot. That's going to save me 43 minutes and 50 seconds. Once I've got that image, I open it up on my orthotic design software, spend another 5 minutes instead of an hour, clicking, dragging, putting a couple of little bits and pieces in, changing a few angles here and there, and that's basically it. And then the job's pretty much done. Then the fabrication, for the actual making of the orthotic, all I need to do is push one button, and that button is print, if there is a print button. They really should put print buttons on these things, I reckon. So once I click print, I'm away, job done. So using a system like this, I've actually reduced my manufacturing time for 3 hours down to 20 minutes, which is less time than I would even spend doing the initial casting part. So what's that going to mean for my business? What isn't going to mean for my business? Obviously, there's the main thing, the time advantage. So I've figured out that basically I'm going to be able to save 2 full days a week with this technology. With that time, what I'll probably end up doing is opening another clinic. Potentially, I can create a situation where I can double the number of patients that I can see. I can spend a bit more time with my wife. Thanks for coming, Jack. I can do a bit more professional development if I want, a bit more business development if I want, or if this thing works out okay, maybe I'll recycle this talk a few times, go do the public speaking circuit or something like that. I don't know. So the best, I think what I actually might end up doing though is maybe have my Friday afternoon beers on a Wednesday afternoon and just have a nice long weekend. So do you remember the 30 hours a week of physical torture that I had to go through as well to make my orthotics? I wouldn't have to do that at all anymore because I got a machine doing it all for me, which means I don't have to worry about glue, I don't have to worry about dust, I don't have to worry about emptying a glass full of saliva on the floor every 2 hours. Life is just going to be, it's going to suck a lot less, honestly. So also from a occupational point of view, occupational health and safety with my back, I'm going to be able to have a longer career. So, I reckon that, with this technology, I could be 65, full of arthritis, I could actually still be making orthotics as long as I can sit in the chair. So, so in the future, the way I see things going basically is that we won't even be making the orthotics. What's really going to happen is that people will come to me, they'll get their feet assessed, I might scan their feet, I might design them, but that's pretty much where the job ends. So what my end product is going to be is probably not an actual physical pair of orthotics. What it's probably going to be is an electronic file. I'm going to email that to my patient who's got their printer at home, and they're going to be the ones actually making the orthotics themselves. So they can go out, if they've got 10 pairs of shoes, they can make themselves 10 pairs of orthotics. But this might eat into my bottom line a little bit, so what if I only want them to have 1 pair of orthotics? Pretty easy. I can just fax them a pair of orthotics. So what you're looking at here is actually the world's first 3D fax machine. It's already been approved. They're making it right now, and in a few months you'll actually be able to go out and buy one of these. So before I move on, part of the work that I do as well as an orthotist is I do fracture casting. So at the moment we're using plaster or fiberglass to do this stuff. What you see down below is how we're going to be doing things in about 5 years' time. This is a 3D printed fracture cast. It's waterproof. It's lighter. You can fit your long sleeve shirt over it, and obviously just looks a hell of a lot cooler as well. So that's with orthotics, but where in technology as well, where 3D printing is really going to blow your mind is when you hear about the studies that are actually going on right now where people are actually using this stuff to print human tissue. So this is a couple of students at Cornell. They've developed a 3D printer that's actually capable of printing ears out of live human cells. This one here, this is a titanium jawbone. This isn't new technology either. So an 83-year-old woman was actually fitted with one of these things over 1.5 years ago. So she's got plenty of stories to tell her bridge club about. So yeah, pretty exciting for her. So you can see really how we use this technology, honestly, it's only limited by our imagination. So just to give you a bit of an example, here's another one. Let's say, going back to the whole Swedish IKEA thing, but let's say we've got a Swedish guy, he's got a great design for a keyring bottle opener. So traditionally, what does he do? He contacts a guy in China. That guy in China is going to make a die or a mold to make this thing. that's probably going to cost about $200,000. So if this guy wants to actually make a profit, he's probably going to make $500,000 of these bottle openers just so he can make a bit of cash. Once it's made, it gets shipped from China. That costs money. Then it goes through customs. That's going to cost more money. Then it gets trucked to a warehouse. The trucking company takes some money. The warehouse takes some money. And this all happens before it ends up on the shelves at a store where hopefully this Swedish guy was right and it pays off for him and he's right about people actually wanting this product so they buy it. So there are a lot of steps in this process here. Really, why do there need to be 5 or 6 stops before it goes from the conception phase to the hands of the consumer? And think about how many assumptions actually need to be made in this process. The fact that one, that this design is something that actually people are interested in, and 2, that he's actually going to sell 500,000 of them so he can make a profit. And even if this guy does make a profit, how much of a profit is it really going to be once 5 middlemen get paid? So basically, what I see the future being is that there's going to be this Swedish guy, he's not going to have to worry about manufacturing at all. He's going to have a website, he's going to upload his design to the website, and for a small fee, you can pay, what is it, $2.95, whatever it is, you can pay a couple of bucks, get this keyring, download it, open it up on your own computer, and bang, 20 minutes later, you can print it out and you can have it for yourself. So obviously this is awesome for the consumer, but for the guy that's making it, this is pretty much going to strip out 99% of the costs involved in making these key rings. The spare parts industry, another great example. So imagine you're doing your vacuuming at home and suddenly one of the plastic attachments on your vacuum cleaner just dies, or breaks or something like that. Get online, download another part, go to the Dyson website, whatever it is, print it out straight away and you're good to go. So I think most of you by this stage probably get the point that 3D printing is going to do some amazing things for humanity and for science. But you probably all want to know how this is actually going to work for you. So you guys work with brands, you want to know how it's going to improve your customers' experience with a certain product. So I don't have a very branding focused mind, but these are a couple of ideas that I've come up with. So for those of you here that I assume some of you probably work with food, imagine you can actually create off your own cuff a piece of cutlery, something that's going to make it more fun for kids to eat spaghetti. Or let's say you work for Kellogg's and you want to create some sort of cool fishing rod that kids can use to actually fish for their Fruit Loops. So I don't know, these are things that I've come up with. I don't know if they're good or not, but that's what I've got, all right? So imagine you're in that situation where you're in the design stage. You don't have to worry about anything but the design itself. You don't have to worry about the manufacturing, the logistics, the customs, any of that stuff. And all you have to do is give your clients a URL and they'll go online, download it and make it for themselves. This idea, I'm sure you guys can probably see the potential of it, is absolutely enormous. Think about the future of collector sets. Lego kits, action figures. You can give these kids these addresses, these web addresses to go to and actually download this stuff. They can go home, they can print it to themselves, they can choose the color, they can choose little bits and pieces to get built onto it, they can have their name put onto it. Really, there are infinite opportunities to customize these sorts of things so these kids can actually have like a one-of-a-kind product that they can take to show and tell. Let's say you sold women's accessories. Why would you even need to bother making a guess at how much of each style it needs to be made when all you can do is have an actual 3D printer hooked up to your point of sale system, and basically your point of sale system will figure out how things are running, and if something's selling good, it would just print stock on demand. You don't have to worry about any wastage, any unsold product at all. If you want to take that a step further, you could even bring the 3D printer into the actual retail environment. You can have it next to, on the store floor. You can have a touch screen where you can actually have people choosing little things on what the sorts of designs that they want in their jewelry, colors, types of materials, all that sort of stuff. So Dan tells me that's something called mass customization, which I think you guys have probably heard of because I haven't. But maybe that's a whole nother talk for another day, I believe. So basically, where did that slide go? To cap it all off, what I was hoping to do today is just bring to your attention how awesome 3D printing is, and the fact that, you know, and maybe just so give you guys the ball so you can run with it a little bit. I've given you a couple of ideas. I'm an orthotist. I don't know very much about, from a creative point of view, about what to do with this, but you guys probably do. So I reckon you guys can come up with some pretty amazing ideas. If all else fails, come to me. I'll make you a pair of orthotics. Everything will be great. Thanks very much, guys.